Time now for this week's Health Matters. PA Lynn Szabo, and we are not talking about pregnancy and vaccination today, right? No, we're talking about old wonder drugs we forgot we had laying around.
Yeah. I think this is cool, mostly because of the way they're figuring this out, actually. So recent studies in JAMA and the Lancet find promise in the use of Luvox, which is also called fluvoxamine, okay, for the treatment of acute COVID. So another treatment for acute COVID. But for those of you that think that sounds a little bit familiar, what actually is it? Well, it's weirdly a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. So in the category fluoxetine.
There we go. Everybody's mic's on. Go ahead.
Oh, my mic was off.
No. Fluvoxamine.
Fluvoxamine. So
not fluoxetine.
So different from. I was going to say they're giving people antidepressants.
It's Prozac, but it's in the same group of drugs that Prozac's in. That Prozac is actually the flagship for. So it's fluvoxamine, or let's just call it Luvox. Okay, it's just easier. So
it's not Prozac, listeners.
Okay. So but it is an SSRI antidepressant that's been around since 1994 for the treatment of depression, OCD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and the local favorite, seasonal affective depression.
That is a local favorite. I look forward to that every year.
Yep. So, but it's super safe. Only has mild side effects, although it does have a black box warning for the treatment of depression. Now, remember, Luvox is being used here in a lower dose for a limited period of time than somebody would be using it for depression. Okay, but the black box warning is for people teens actually, or young adults who use it for depression, can have an increase of suicidality, but that does not apply to treating with acute COVID.
Okay, why is that?
Because they're not taking it as long.
Oh, okay. So,
that kind of increased suicidality in young adults and teens kind of shows up about, after 6 to 8 weeks. So this is a course of therapy that's for 10 days at a lower dose. Okay. And so what they think it does, and there's a lot of biochemistry behind this. If you want to check out MedCram, you can see it. But they think that it minimizes the cytokine storm.
Okay, all right. So, it just keeps that tidal wave from building up and washing over you. Okay, all right.
Right. And so most of these data came from what's called Together COVID-19 clinical trials. And this is the cool part, I think. Kind of geeking out on it. Anyway, this is an international collaboration, looking at previously used meds, about 8 of them, with an established safety profile, and to repurpose them for the use in acute COVID. So, why didn't they think this?
Is that a scientific term?
Totally,
is that a medical dope?
Yeah.
Homer's dope. Describing the opposite.
So the tool they use to look at these drugs is unique. So these studies are set up in a really unique way. So they use a randomized placebo-controlled. Okay, we're familiar with that. Adaptive platform. That's the cool part. And so what they did was they looked at 8 drugs, and so 8 arms of the study. Each arm had the active ingredient, which was double-blinded, and also placebo-controlled. So each drug that they looked at had 2 subgroups. So one of people getting the drug, one of people getting placebo. And these drugs that they looked at are going to be kind of familiar. So hydroxychloroquine was one of them. Lopinavir, ritonavir, those are HIV antivirals. Metformin, which is common up here, treated for type 2 diabetes. Ivermectin. Dozazocin, which is an old tricyclic antidepressant. Interferon, and Luvox. Okay, and the reason those drugs were picked was because they thought there was a biochemical rationale behind their being useful.
Okay.
Again, you can go to MedCram if you want to kind of get the details on that. But so the patients entered the study. They were randomized into one of these 8 arms, so one of these drugs, and they either got placebo or they got the real drug. The endpoints they used in each arm were if there was a clear benefit, and what that was is they looked at ER visits that were greater than 6 hours. That seems a little weird to me, but that was one of their criteria. Or
When do they start the clock? That's actually...
I know. That could just be waiting room time.
Right.
Anyway, and then, or the other one was that the patient was so sick they got transferred to tertiary care, which is super hard to do up here.
Yeah.
So tertiary care is like UCSF or OHSU. I mean, I don't even know if they would count Reading as tertiary care or Medford. That maybe, it depends. So anyway, they looked at these 2 points as a stopping point, and then they kept looking at it until any particular arm of the study was considered statistically futile.
Okay.
So I love that term. I want to use that in real life. So if a particular drug was found to be futile in its benefit against acute COVID-19, then what they did was they just tunneled the incoming patients more heavily into the other arms. And so some of these drugs really quickly were found not to be useful.
Okay.
And some of these drugs, were found not to be useful with like maybe 200 patients. So that's 100 drug, 100 placebo. But some of them actually had some promise and statistically looked good. So Ivermectin actually ended up with about 750 patients in their trial before it was decided it was statistically futile. So, but the endpoint was that Luvox showed promising results. So the dose of it is 100 milligrams twice a day for 10 to 14 days. And this is for you, Mike. The cost is $4.
Total or dose?
Total.
Wow, nice.
Yeah, it was this drug. I remember when this drug came out, and it was kind of used briefly for antidepressant, and then it just fell off the radar. And I think the black box warning for young adults and teens just made providers not want to use it. It's also, Prozac, which is a similar drug, is cheaper. So they found statistically significant decrease in hospitalizations and deaths, and no increase in severe side effects.
Wow.
Yeah.
Best for women BMI greater than 30?
Yeah.
Wow.
So best for women, best for individuals with BMI greater than 30, best for people without kidney disease, and best for former or never smokers.
Wow, I'll be darned.
So they were also able to look at those data too, which was super cool.
I guess the question I have is I don't get the connection between something that is prescribed for depression,
Right.
something that's clearly an antiviral because COVID's a viral-driven disease,
Yeah,
right?
it's not really an antiviral. It's an anti-cytokine storm.
Oh, okay. And
So
then
it's like an immune modulator.
Oh, okay. Because then, at least what I thought I was told was that ivermectin's like an anti-parasitic drug.
Right.
I guess I don't understand what makes them all. What is the thing that
Right.
would make them all candidates for being successful at treating COVID?
So that gets into really complex biochemistry, but and again, MedCram explains the Luvox connection really well. But what happens is Luvox seems to land in a receptor that produces and it causes an increased production in an anti-inflammatory component in the mitochondria of the cell, and then it triggers the inflammatory response that's coming from the nucleus and kind of making proteins that are involved in a cytokine storm. It kind of slows that down or blocks it. I doubt it blocks it completely, but slows it down significantly. So to remember, a cytokine storm is an immune response that's actually not very helpful. It actually makes people sicker. So what that does is that slows that down.
And these other drugs did something similar, but not as effective.
Yeah, and probably each of them do have a little bit different mechanism. Ivermectin, when it was thought to be useful in studies outside of the United States, what they think, they did see some benefit initially. And what they think that was about is oftentimes developing countries, the parasite burden that an individual has is super higher.
Oh, wow.
Super high compared to to what we have, here
So
in the United States.
anything would help like that then, right?
Right.
Because it would knock that down.
Yeah.
Right. So if you knock down the other illnesses, then maybe the person's own immune system can elevate itself and fight the virus better.
Yeah.
But that's only a guess. A lot of the problems with the Ivermectin studies in developing countries is that there was fraud involved. Clearly.
Oh, wow.
But that explanation at least makes some sense, what you
Right.
just said.
Right. So I think that each mechanism in each one of these drugs, like I could see where they'd pick a protease inhibitor from HIV. So ritonavir, lopinavir, that's a protease inhibitor. And what protease inhibitors do is they just shut down viral replication. So that made sense, but they didn't find that it was actually helpful. So stuff that's intellectually promising then it goes to in vitro, and it can be promising like ivermectin was, and then in vivo. So the that's promising news because right now Europe is going through its fourth wave. And it
Right,
doesn't-
and is that something? I mean, is that something that we should prepare for actually here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how could we prepare for that?
Getting our booster shots.
You get an A.
Thank you. I'd
Paul
rather have a
gets an A.
booster shot, but thanks. But
You get a free guitar.
and you get a free.
Yeah,
Wow,
and there's
yeah.
going to be certain groups that it's become really important, like pregnant women.
Mm-hmm,
So we'll loop around to that if you want to.
Yeah, I think
But-
that might be important. When I was talking with one of the people on staff at the county that you put me in contact with, and she was saying that that's a very particularly that the pregnancy reluctance, the reluctance to get vaccinated from pregnant women is a big concern here locally, and that there are actually healthcare people, doctors, who are steering their patients that way without any sort of like medical or scientific
I know.
reason.
I'm actually. It'd be interesting to know who that is.
Right,
maybe.
right.
But yeah, I'm not surprised at all to hear that.
Yeah. So that might be a good topic to. It occurs to me too that there have been a number of things we've talked about over the course of the pandemic in which I mean you can kind of characterize what's happened with COVID-19 and the pandemic as being a good in a particular sort of sense, like the way it drove the development of the mRNA vaccines, and now it looks like we're trying to understand, sort of with this shotgun approach with these drugs, these 8 different drugs that you've been describing in this trial. I mean that tells me they don't really understand the mechanism. They're still looking for whatever the mechanism might be. That these drugs, different or mechanisms that they share among themselves, but dealing with the response that you're talking about.
Right. I don't think those drugs were chosen at random. I think those drugs
Yeah,
were
no.
chosen with the expectation that they could be biochemically helpful.
Yeah, no, and I'm not saying it's random. Let's just pull drugs off the shelf and just throw them at this thing.
Right.
But it seems like this is given like it's an upshot of the pandemic, is that it's driven a lot of development and research, and a lot of something very important could come out of this, right?
I've never seen a drug trial set up with this kind of adaptability.
Really, like
This is
on
a
the fly, right?
Mean, drug understanding machine.
Right.
And so what they did was they dropped out the stuff that wasn't helpful really early, and then they could pour numbers into what was helpful and promising.
It seems like they were sort of
That's very clever.
sort of straddling the different states of being, here we are, we're trying to understand this as a study, but at the same time, these are sick people and we want to help them.
Right.
So it was kind of doing both.
Right. I like that it's international. So it was Canada and Brazil with multiple international sites, because the United States can get a little judgy about their research compared to international research, and really, that's not appropriate right now.
Yeah,
we need
yeah.
to rise above that.
Right.
So, yeah, it's super helpful, and it's the messenger RNA. So there's a lot of good things that have come out of this COVID debacle. So messenger RNA vaccines are huge. I listened to something this morning about the projections on what influenza is going to be like, and it's supposed to be if we get our modeling information from the southern hemisphere, which is common, then it's going to be really mild.
Again, yeah, because everybody's hunkered down and wearing masks and
Yeah.
Good.
Social distancing, mask wearing, hand washing. all that stuff matters.
What if we got into doing this just as a matter of course every flu season?
Like other countries.
Wow.
Get out of here, you communist.
I'm so sorry. I'll go back to South Korea or wherever I'm from.
And stop doing things like shaking hands.
That's true, although I do miss that. I miss that too.
Yeah,
I like I just, because I was always a thing growing up, like when I reached the age where I could confidently shake hands with other people, I really felt like an adult.
I know what you mean. I miss spitting in strangers' mouths.
Yeah, I know, huh? Just... It's a very...
It's been a long
It's a low
time
mix.
since that was okay. Just saying, you know.
I think it happens on BART actually a lot, and probably subways.
Oh, God.
I mean,
It's a bird thing, isn't it?
yeah. If you watch somebody sneeze in slow motion, it's
That's
kinda
basically what's
disgusting.
happening, right?
Yeah, it's like ew.
That's why when someone sneezes, you should never point and have your mouth open in awe.
Look how slow that is.
So I think I know the answer to this before I even ask it, but this way that they are approaching researching these drugs that you're talking about and the development of mRNA, that's going to change how we do research when it comes to all kinds of pharmaceuticals
totally.
and moving things through the pipeline towards getting them approved. I mean, that's all going to change because of this, right?
Well, totally. Our flu shot's going to be different. Probably a lot of our immunizations are going to be different. Probably there's going to be someday, you know, the dream is like immunizations against HIV and malaria, Ebola. I mean, so never ignore a smart Hungarian woman for 40 years. That's the take-home lesson. So yeah, messenger RNA vaccines were the idea was initially developed by a Hungarian scientist who was actually told she was a dreamer. So
And also the potential repurposing of drugs as well.
right,
Yeah.
and now we know a way to set up a really convincing study to get data fast. Because that's been a frustrating thing is like, we don't know that yet. So do we get a fourth shot? When do we get a fourth shot? Nobody knows. It's the time vector, it trips us up.
Are we moving toward, because this kind of seems like, it seems like an idea, maybe we've discussed this, broached this subject before. Are we moving toward an era in the future, perhaps far in the future, in which vaccines would be tailored to you individually? Because of mRNA technology and just the kind of genetic like dovetailing that can happen with that sort of thing?
I think it could be.
Wow, that's
But I
interesting.
also see a downside to that.
How so?
So what if, so these vaccines, messenger RNA vaccines, are really dependent on proper temperature storing. I mean, really, the nurses lose their mind over it. It's very persnickety.
Yeah.
And what if we all of a sudden don't have that capacity? I mean, and it's easy enough. Klamath electricity goes out all the time, and so that's I know UHS has a problem in Klamath keeping their vaccines stable, just their regular like tetanus shots.
Wow.
Because you know the generator, you know, that's supposed to be their backup method, you know, doesn't work. And so what's going to happen if there's, I don't know, the grid goes down or something?
Right.
So
Or we have that, you know, that stereotypical, like the bugaboo here in Del Norte, which is, we're going to have a storm, it's going to cut us off, be prepared for 3 days, that kind of thing.
right,
Yeah.
and then you know if you're truly a Del Norter, that makes you smile.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I guess, I mean, maybe just being in the 21st century, a lot of like mainstream everything doesn't take into consideration those communities that surround us, and we are part of one that kind of exists on the frontier. You know, that's not so much a thing anymore. I think people forget that places like that exist when living.
They totally do.
Yeah, you know, there are still people on the edge.
Yeah.
It's not, we're not all one big happy 21st century society.
Yeah, I know. If I talk to other PAs at UCSF about patient care, they're like, well,
Where are you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just get a cardiology referral next
Oh,
week.
yeah,
It's
sure,
no
yeah.
big deal.
Yeah.
I'm like, so the road's closed because of snow at the tunnel, you know, and there's a mudslide because of the fires, and they totally don't get it.
And the covered wagon doesn't go that fast
Yeah.
anyway.
Exactly. All right. Right.
The oxen gets scared, and you got to push them through.
We are in a lot of ways, you know, just on Mars, and I know, that's a rude awakening for a lot of folks, and you know, whether they're healthcare workers or lawmakers, to realize just how different life can be for us up here.
Right. Well, and then if you have a population, let's just say the United States, that's all highly vaccinated to keep healthy, what's gonna? Yeah, I mean that's a huge problem. All the logistics, and if it, it's like, what if the internet went down? How long would your radio station be on the air?
Oh, we could be on the air. We just wouldn't reach as near as many people.
Right. Yeah. See, so our world would change. Our world would change.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
Wow. All right.
kind of exciting. We
So-
could talk about pregnant women next week.
You want to do that
want
next
to.
week? I
It's
think
a
that's
huge
important.
big deal, and I find in the exam room not much success.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's kind of a mama bear situation, right? You don't want to get between a mama and her cub. And that's basically what you're saying. And I guess people would go like, I'll just, I'm going to stay pregnant and not worry about this vaccine, or stay away from, whatever.
Right.
Don't want to jeopardize. It's like, the health of the unborn child takes on, everything. That's the most important thing. And so, but yeah, people are dying and suffering
they
because
come
of that.
from a place of fear.
Exactly.
And it's hard to know who to trust.
And I know that the county, at least the person at the county at the public health department I spoke to, that was a specific message that they wanted to make sure got out, because it's a problem here in Del Norte.
Yeah. Then
Okay.
let's talk about it next week.
Alrighty. That is all for this week's Health Matters. Anything else? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Lynn.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right. And there will be more content. We've got Lynn has started providing us with content for this other project, and I want to talk about this just briefly at the end here. We've received a $50,000 grant to work on COVID messaging, and also to work specifically to host and to facilitate six of them is what we committed to, vaccination events that target the houseless population in Del Norte. And we're also talking about maybe getting into the Glen, doing something with UIHS. But I just talked with the nurse at the public health yesterday, and sort of established all of this, and we started sending emails around. So we've gotten messaging coming out, as well as specific vaccination events to get vaccines to some of the more marginal populations in Del Norte. And Lynn is a very, very big part of that. She's the one who's giving us all our messaging and sort of distilling a year and a half worth of COVID health matters and putting together these important messages.
Data-driven.
Exactly. So we want to get this together and, do fun, interesting videos, but also factually robust. And share that to try to get us above. I think we're pegged at about 50% vaccination here in Del Norte County, right? I mean, I'll look on the site and see what it says,
Yeah.
but
I roll.
I think we got a little boost because of the Delta surge and all the fatalities, and then that seems to have leveled off now. So it's time to attack it again, because not only are we talking about original vaccinations and the half of us who aren't vaccinated, but it's also time to start thinking about the booster shots for those of us who did get vaccinated.
I know Dr. Stutz has said on more than one occasion that 55% is going to be the minimum for removing the mask mandate.
Wow. Okay.
He's said that on several occasions. That doesn't mean that he might not change it again and lower it down. I don't know, but...
What have we got? We've 50% fully vaccinated is what it has, and it looks like there's a little. It doesn't break it down anymore, but there is a partially vaccinated. There's a little group there that seems to be pushing.
Would that be kids? What age group are you talking about?
It doesn't
adults?
have age group. You see this circle?
okay.
That's
Yeah.
what I have.
Hey, that's a first shot. I remember that used to be counted for.
Yeah,
but the
at
number's no longer
UIHS we immunized
right.
the first 5-year-old and 6-year-old. this
Really?
week. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Nurse Aaron. So, yeah,
Is there
it was a moment.
How's the turnout for kids getting vaccinated so far? I mean, in general.
I think it's better than I thought it was going to be, and less than I hoped it would be.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And
That can be said about so many things in Del Norte.
yeah, I know.
The Del Norte experience.
Always hoping for better.
It's better than you thought. It's better than the worst case
It's
scenario.
not as bad as I feel.
That's it.
But
It's
man,
not
I
as
wish it
good
could be
as I
better.
hoped.
I put that up on the sign on Highway 101. Well, Lynn Szabo, thank you very much. And as I was talking about and telling our listeners about, this is just sort of we're right at the front edge of a big swell of more information here. And you are surfing that wave. Thank you very much for
Yeah, it's
keeping us.
fun.
Is it fun? Really?
Yeah,
You like that?
it
Yeah,
is.
I know you like this stuff.
I know,
right?
kind of nerdy.
You're kind of nerdy. Good. If there's one thing I want from my healthcare professionals, it's nerdiness.
Read the journal, dude.
All righty. Thank you. We'll see you next week for next week's Health Matters. And, of course, this Health Matters will be posted online so we can share it around for everybody or anybody who missed it. Lynn Szabo, PA at Large. You're tuned to KFUG Community Radio.